Good afternoon, everyone. This is Karen Main from St. Raphael's, and this week we were on Chapter 12 of Mass Matters, called Cantankerous Comments. So this is the end of this unit that they've been going over various Mass parts of the Mass and different comments about the Mass and different groups and what's been going on. So this is just kind of an overview of some of the various items that we sort of look at church and may find to criticize, or just kind of wrapping up these whole chapters before we enter a new unit. Our author starts with a little bit of called Cycling the Bible. And prior to Vatican II, the Mass was slightly a different structure. And part of the Vatican II was to reorganize our lectionaries that we use for daily and weekend Masses. And the concept was that we would be able to educate our Catholic people better if they heard more of the Bible. So the whole point is that during our daily Masses, we would hear an Old Testament reading and then a Gospel. Of course, a Psalm as well. And then on the weekends, we would have our first reading from the Old Testament, the second reading from the New Testament, a Psalm in between, with a gospel reading. And the whole concept was that in the course of 3 years, our parishioners would be hearing just about the entire Bible. Well, it doesn't quite work quite that well. And unless people go to Mass every single day, this concept doesn't quite work. So he's just sort of talking that the lectionaries were redesigned after Vatican II, but are we really hearing, by hearing so many readings in one Mass, are we able to take in that much literature and try to digest that? And then our priests who are trying to preach on this, or our deacons, how do they do this? How do they get the readings to combine? Or do we preach on the reading, or should we be once in a while preaching on just other Catholic issues or other areas within the church that we might need to talk to our people about? So there's a lot going on between the readings and the homilies, and our homilies different than sermons, and when is there a time, for our priests to discern what is the best for each parish. So there's just so many moving parts in any liturgy, and especially when our priests are pulled in so many various directions in any given week, for them to really decide what they will preach on and how they would choose to preach on it can be a very time-consuming process for them. The author was trying to help us to be aware that the priests are really now in this time trying to call us to our holiness, to discern our own charisms as lay ministers within the church, and our calling as adult Christians. Instead of just being talked to, we're really being talked to in a way that hopefully will move our hearts and move us to action, to really live out this Christian faith that we are upon. So instead of just saying that homily maybe didn't work for me and so forth, we also need to work at finding a middle ground with what's being preached on to see how that's speaking to our hearts. And we have work to do as parishioners as well to pull from that, and not just to rely on things to simply move us in a way that we expect them to. So as we're hearing scriptures and we're hearing homilies and we're hearing sermons, there's just a lot of moving pieces with that. We also talk a little bit about the stopwatch crowd in this chapter, that, we are very disciplined people, and if a homily goes beyond 8 or 10 minutes, we get very restless, and we expect this wonderful message to be given to us in a very concrete and very solid and very small time frame. So, the difference really between Protestants, going back to that again, is that they focus on preaching during their services. the Catholics, we focus on the celebrating of the Mass, and it goes so far beyond simply hearing the word and hearing the sermon. We're also going to be receiving Eucharist. So there's a bigger and broader picture of what we celebrate through the rite of our Catholic Mass. Then he talks a little bit about some of the devotions that we have been downplayed since Vatican II that are starting up again, that we're starting to revive. One of them that he spends a little bit of time on, and again, he's doing a little bit of a devil's advocate here, so we're not trying to talk down the adoration or the devotion to the adoration, but he really contemplates the action of the Eucharist in the Last Supper as what we do when we come to Mass, and that movement of taking that bread and wine and making it into the body and blood, and the action of receiving that as Jesus would have done and distributed that to his disciples at the Last Supper, versus simply sitting and staring and taking Jesus out of the Mass for a devotional time. And he kind of wonders a little bit about the that particular devotion, and even saying maybe we should stretch that devotion a little bit, and instead of necessarily having a consecrated host in our presence, what about an icon? What about doing something a little bit different that may move us? The art of an iconic picture of Jesus may move us in our hearts in a different way than perhaps the host might do in the same situation, or being open to maybe other possibilities that can move our hearts. So I'm not saying I'm pro or con either one of these. He's just starting to open up discussion about different ways to perhaps look at some of the devotions in a modern day age. We also talk about the difference in masses, and I know there have been people that have been stepping in to usher lately for different mass times, and the biggest comment that they make is that, wow, I cannot believe the different personality that each mass time takes on. And here in our parish lately, we've been celebrating 5 masses, one on Saturday, 3 on Saturday morning, and then one on Sunday morning, and then one on Sunday night. Each of these has a different group of individuals that like to come and worship at that time. It really is a different atmosphere, a different group, a different kind of sub-community at each of those masses. So it talks a little bit about the difference that each one takes and the personality that each mass takes on. He also discusses a little bit about the parish bulletin and how, again, instead of doing all the announcements at the end of Mass, to try to train our parishioners to go to that bulletin, and how that bulletin can be a resource for people who are looking for other avenues of deepening their faith, a pastor's corner, which we do weekly, and different things from different viewpoints of even staff members, where Betty does a little bit of a column. The deacon sometimes writes the pastor's corner. Some of our pastor, our associate pastor, who share their viewpoints. So we get different directions and different viewpoints from different people in our parish as well. He also talks a little bit about parish hopping, which is a reality that our loyalty to a neighborhood parish is really changing, and people now drive to a parish not necessarily within their neighborhood district, but to a parish that they really feel that they can gel with, or that they have a greater connection to. And this has really changed again. Years ago, we had the neighborhood parishes that were very central to our neighborhoods, and now our parishes, people drive. Some of our Oshkosh people even drive to Green Bay to receive masses that they can connect to in a way that's very compatible to the doctrine that they're searching for. So there's a lot going on with all of that as well. he leaves us in this chapter with talking about blessing from our traditions, and that just again, to be very open that as we become more diversified in our parishes, and as we continue to do that, to be open, that we should be able to bless each other's traditions, and instead of being offended or politically correct and really being forced into watering down some of the things we say, wouldn't it be just wonderful if we could bless each other, wish each other well from our different places? So I leave you with this shorter message today that there are just lots of moving pieces within our liturgy. And again, this chapter just sort of tied everything that we've been kind of talking to and kind of an overall scenario of some of the areas we continue to move with, that we are moving through, that will be ever changing, and that we continue to look at and always seek a new direction, or to see how best we can serve our parish community through these themes. I thank you for taking time to listen today. God bless.